What is going on, everyone? It is College Football Talk, and I'm your host, Hunter DeLauder. And today is a very quick episode 102. We're going to be doing national title preview, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Going to break it down, give my thoughts and predictions on that game. That's really going to be it for today. Just going to be a quick one. Um, do apologize for not being as up to date throughout the playoffs. Poor internet connection was the biggest culprit, and just too many things going on the plate. So was not able to be as productive on that side. So I do apologize on that. But we're back now. Have everything, the full setup going on here. So going to be pumping out more stuff now. Post football seasons, which is going to be good because, you staying up to date on everything else is going on with transfer portal rankings, recruiting, and all that stuff. So we'll be pumping out more content following the season's end Monday night. But today we're going to be talking about the national title preview and what to expect on Monday night in Atlanta. So without further ado, to go right before I do get started, though, make sure you guys are subscribing to the podcast, trying to pump up those numbers. Continue to like the videos, subscribe if you're new and you haven't already subscribed yet, and then share the videos as well. That always is amazing. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it because we got nothing much else to talk about other than this. This is the biggest thing going on, obviously. So the granddaddy of them all, no, well, that's the Rose Bowl, but national title game, got Ohio State, Notre Dame, both two teams come in separate paths, I'd say. You have Ohio State came in probably with the most difficult path I've seen a team in the postseason having to get to a national title. Had to go through Tennessee, had to go through Oregon, steamrolled both, and then got out of Arlington alive from Texas, thanks to some questionable play calling at the end of the game from Steve Sarkisian, to say the least. I could go on a rant about that. And I wish I got the chance to, but with relevancy right now, it just doesn't make sense to talk about it. But it was a terrible decision by Steve Sarkisian. And then you have Notre Dame came in, had the cupcake game with Indiana, then goes to New Orleans, takes care of Georgia. I'll be with the backup quarterback with Georgia. But listen, Notre Dame was the better team that day. They took advantage of Georgia's mistakes. Notre Dame didn't make the mistakes. Notre Dame was the better team. They move on from that. They go to Miami to take on Penn State. Penn State controls that game really from the jump, but just Penn State not being able to put Notre Dame away ultimately came back to haunt them, and then Notre Dame just kind of stuck the course, and they gutted out a win on a walk-off field goal for Mitch Jeter. So congrats to Notre Dame on that part. But now we set up the national title game in Atlanta. Right now, Ohio State is a 8-point favorite, over-under setting at 45.5. I really think the biggest thing for this, Notre Dame's going to need to make this like a low-scoring game. They're going to have to make this a gutty, ugly game, kind of like how Nebraska and Michigan made it with Ohio State, even Texas to some degree. Just Texas wasn't able to finish it off. But they're going to have to play outstanding defense and not shoot themselves in the foot, because you cannot let these weapons on the outside with Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, who emerged himself finally in the Cotton Bowl. These guys can't just take over the games. That's what happened when they played Oregon and Tennessee. Trying to think who else they played maybe throughout the year. Can't really think of anybody off the top of my head, like a big time stature, but like Oregon and Tennessee game, like they were able to just from the jump take over. And even like the beginning of the Texas game, it looked like Texas really didn't have an answer until they figured it out. They started playing some more just high level zone coverage and was able to kind of limit what Ohio State wanted to do. Now, that forced Ohio State to just run the ball all night, and they had great success doing that with Trayvon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. But Notre Dame's going to have to figure that out. Now, Notre Dame plays man-to-man more than probably just about any team in the country. I mean, they trust their guys. They trust, Watts and Morrison and all those other guys to, just go man-to-man on their guy and, your best on my best, and we'll go from there. I just don't think that that's going to work out very well. I think that Al Golden's going to have to be able to mix in some zone coverages every once in a while, because I just don't. I trust Notre Dame's back end to a degree, but I've seen what Jeremiah Smith's been able to do when he's left one-on-one with people, and it's not usually a good outcome for the defense. Um, and Will Howard has been, loving when teams do that, because he can just throw it up to his big guy and let him go to work. So I think Notre Dame's going to have to figure out some way to, again, eliminate Jeremiah Smith. Texas did it to a outstanding degree. Can Notre Dame replicate that in some way? And again, will Notre Dame anyway implement any sort of zone coverages more? Maybe they don't play man-to-man as much. They go 50-50, maybe like a 60-40 type ordeal. I don't know. Or maybe Notre Dame just says, listen, we've gotten this far playing our style defense. We're not going to just go away from it one game just because of some team. Like, we're going to stick with it. If we lose by it, that's what's going to happen. We're going to die on that hill. We're going to win or lose one way or another, playing man-to-man. So I think that's going to be something to look at. Those defensive backs taking on Ohio State's receivers. And then as far as Notre Dame offensively goes, how are they going to be able to generate enough points? I think is going to be also something, because Ohio State has, I believe, the number 16 sacks right now through 3 games. They've been completely terrorizing people. Notre Dame is banged up to death on the O-line. I think now they're down to like their 3rd string left tackle. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the side that Jack Sawyer's on. So you have him and Tuimoloau who are going to go to work. You have a banged up running back and Jeremiah Love. Now, granted, he's been playing, but he has a banged up knee. Jadarian Price is decent back as well. Obviously, I don't really, love the receivers on the outside with Faison and Grayhouse as the kind of the 2 main guys. But they've just, I honest to God, like, they just find ways to win, which is credit to Marcus Freeman and that whole entire team. But offensively, like, what are they going to be able to do to kind of, is there any sort of weaknesses they can exploit? I don't know. Because Ohio State doesn't have many on defense, and that's what's going to be really interesting to see how effectively Notre Dame is going to be at effectively just moving the ball up and down the field, because they're really going to need their defense to, I think, force some turnovers, set up field position. A field position is going to be a huge game for Notre Dame's offense, because, again, I just don't see Notre Dame's offense effectively going up and down the field consistently enough to beat Ohio State. They're going to need really good field position some days, or most downs or most drives. And then, a turnover or 2 is going to really help them out there. Because, Riley Leonard, he's a good quarterback, but I just don't, I don't see, he's not like the guy that's going to be, I think, the takeover type guy. Like, he needs everything else around him to kind of come together, work in unison some. Even in like the games they've won in the playoff. He didn't do anything crazy in the Sugar Bowl. It was the run game that overwhelmed Indiana in the first game. And then against Penn State, it was the Drew Aller mistakes that set up good field position. And there was one big play they hit. They had a couple big plays, but there was the one busted coverage where they were able to score the touchdown late in the game. But other than that, like, it hasn't been much going for Notre Dame. Penn State overwhelmed Notre Dame on the line of scrimmage. Luckily, Notre Dame was able to get out of there with a win. Again, thanks to some turnovers and mistakes from Penn State's side that helped out Notre Dame. But is Notre Dame going to be able to? I just don't see how they are. I think they'll be able to put points up, but I just don't think they're going to be able to, they're not going to hit 30. I'll tell you that right now. They will not touch 30. They may not hit 27. I think this is going to be, if Notre Dame wants to win this game, I really do think it's going to have to be somewhere in between like 17 to 24 range. Like, that's it. As far as Ohio State goes, maybe defensively, I think that, listen, you just got to be able to overwhelm that offensive line for Notre Dame. I already talked about with the DNs, but even the linebackers with Simon, you're kind of leading that group right there. All the other guys, like, they've been playing out of their mind. Not to mention you have guys like Caleb Downs in the back end who's been playing really well too in this postseason. So it's just like a perfect storm right now for Ohio State. I think the one thing that Ohio State maybe needs to just needs to avoid is in the sense that, let's say, Notre Dame's defense possibly is playing just really good defense. They're playing zone and stuff like that. They need to make sure that like Will Howard does not lose them the ball game. He had a couple big mistakes against Texas. And listen, you cannot afford to do that against Notre Dame. Notre Dame is good enough to take advantage of it. Obviously, they've shown that. So, like, if you make mistakes, they're going to take advantage. They've done it throughout the entire postseason, throughout the whole season. And Will Howard, I think, is the one person that he's played outstanding this entire postseason and most of the year. But he cannot lose this game. Whichever quarterback loses this game, makes the most mistakes, is going to lose their team the game. Because both quarterbacks aren't like, those first, second round picks. They're going to be, they're not that kind of talent. They can certainly win you the game, but they can also lose you the game. Which quarterback will not lose the game is going to win this game for their team. As far as prediction goes, I like Ohio State. I don't like saying that, if I'm going to be real. But listen, I acknowledge both teams are really good. And listen, maybe Notre Dame gets revenge for last year's just gut punch loss to Ohio State at home. But I just don't see how Notre Dame's going to be able to put enough points up on the board. I think Ohio State overwhelms them early. Like if Ohio State goes up early, like 14-0, like that is, Notre Dame would be in deep trouble at that point. Like they cannot afford to go down more than one score. It is going to have to be a slug it out, keep it within the one possession type game for Notre Dame if they want to win this game, and then kind of pounce on any opportunity they can at an Ohio State mistake and take advantage of it. Like they're going to need probably a lucky bounce or two if they do want to win this game. And credit to Notre Dame fans for believing like they might win this game. I just don't see how they are going to win this game. I like Ohio State to win this one somewhere in the ballpark of like a 27-13 game. The score might be closer than what the actual game indicates. I think this is going to be Ohio State overwhelming Notre Dame to a degree. I look for the Buckeyes to get their first title since 2014, the 2014-2015 season. So congrats to Ohio State there. But we'll have to wait and see now what the actual game shows us on Monday night. And then we'll be back sometime later that week to go over the game and then talk about some other stuff as we kind of have to figure out a plan for the off season, as we like to say. There's never any off season in college football, but we're gonna have to figure that out, and then we'll go from there. But make sure you guys are subscribing and liking the videos, and I'll see you guys on the flip side.